morning, everyone. Welcome to a brand new week. It's the middle of June, the middle of the middle month of the year. Good morning and welcome to 55 minutes of current and relevant business conversations right here on Business Morning. I'm Ini John Mekwa, and I'm glad that we're starting this week with good news. At least we believe it to be a sustained one. The United States and Iranian officials say that they have reached an agreement to end the war and reopen the Strait of Hormuz, a preliminary pact that has sent oil prices falling but leaves the fate of Tehran's nuclear program to further negotiations. While still a framework, the deal marks the biggest breakthrough towards resolving the conflict that's killed thousands and upended energy markets since it began by February 28th with joint U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran. So that drop in the price of oil this morning has brought Brent down to $83.29 a barrel, losing 4.61%. WTI 5.30% down at $80.38 a barrel. So we'll see how this talk continues. As I said earlier, the framework has not yet been fully agreed upon, and there's so many unanswered questions around this agreement, but at least we have this positive sentiment which we hope would last. Back here in Nigeria, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project has filed a lawsuit against the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, that's the NNPCL, over its alleged failure to account for approximately 5.9 billion naira reportedly spent on the incorporation, transition and rebranding of the NNPCL, making it a corporate body. Sarab said that the NNPCL reportedly paid 2.9 billion naira for incorporation expenses from petroleum products proceeds, while the National Petroleum Investment Management Services also charged 2.9 billion naira to crude oil revenue for the same purpose, and that brings the total of 5.9 billion naira. The rights group is seeking accountability and transparency, arguing that the spending raises concerns over the management of public funds. No date has been fixed for the hearing of the suit just yet. To the markets now, we saw positive close last week at the local bourse, 0.88% up for the all share, 244,736.74. The equities cap went up to almost 157 trillion naira, but not just there yet. Perhaps we would see a continuation of that positive trajectory, and perhaps we'll hit 157 by close of trade today. Activity chart was mostly green, but we had a drop in deals compared to the previous week. So volume 4.96 billion, value 207.5 billion naira, but we had deals drop right there. For the sectors, we saw mostly positive, at least for the most liquid, we saw positive almost 1%, 0.95%. Consumer goods and industrial goods were, however, negative at the end of the week. Insurance is back up again, catching the attention of some investors, 1.63% in the green. Oil and gas, 0.5% up also. Of course, we saw a lot of movement around O&O last week, and that's pushed that. Top gainers, Associated Boss Company PLC, Consolidated Hallmark Holdings, also positive, and Abe is still enjoying its new status, going from a mortgage bank to a commercial bank, and that's exciting a lot of investors. Top losers, we saw Fitson Health, Nemeth, and UH Real Estate. So with Ebola's resurfacing, I have thought that perhaps the health stocks would be doing well now. We know what happened during former Ebola and COVID and all of that, but doesn't look like that. At least for last week, Fitson and Nemeth, we saw them drop. Top trades were Sterling Financial Holdings, FCMB, and Access Holdings. Access Holding not yet recovered to where we know it to be. It might take a bit of time, but I guess They will surely get there. It's the market, yeah, sentiments around it. We're still talking about the market now. Fixed income trading in Nigeria recorded a strong upswing with transactions rising to 1.06 trillion naira. And this is according to data from the Central Bank of Nigeria. The increase reflects heightened activity in government securities and renewed investor appetite in the domestic debt market amid shifting interest rate expectations. So, of course, it also means the debt of the government is increasing, but it shows that the sentiment of investors is positive towards government securities. Nigeria's gross external reserves have climbed to $50.42 billion. That's for June 9, 2026. This is extending their upward trajectory for a fifth consecutive week. According to data from the central bank, the latest figures show an increase of $231.5 million, underscoring improved foreign exchange inflows and strengthening the country's external buffers. The continued accretion in the FX reserves is attributed to elevated crude receipts coming from the strong global oil prices, which are heavily influenced by ongoing Middle East conflict, which is about to end, hopefully, as well as the increase in foreign portfolio inflows. So can we expect a reversal of this now that we see that the war should be ending soon? I wonder. Before now, the country's external buffer had hit the $50 billion level on March 11, before experiencing a temporary pullback into $48 billion and $49, ranging from late March to early May because of seasonal demand clearing and debt servicing obligations. Now, still staying with the economy, let's see a little bit of Friday. We didn't have business morning, so we couldn't join you all in celebrating 27 years of unbroken democracy in Nigeria, but we can do that today. So let's see our journey, talking about the economy, especially the fiscal economy over the years from 1999 till date. We remember, for instance, if we could have that slide, we remember, for instance, there was the debt issue, which was later removed. But let's just look at economic indicator, looking at has democracy paid off in the Nigerian economy? That's one question we want to try to answer at this time. So let's see the economic indicator. Then we have the 1999. This is the baseline before we started this dispensation of democracy, which is unbroken now. And then this is the current status. So we see the GDP around 1999 was $59.14 billion. Now we see that we are about more than 100, almost $200 billion. Yeah, and a projected growth of 4 for this year, 4.1%. And when we look at our annual inflation, then we're talking about less than 10%, single digit, 6.62%. But of course, now we know that we have gone beyond 10%, 15.69% as of April 2026. Then we see the official exchange rate. And it used to be about 92. And I remember we had 150 for a dollar for a pretty long time. A lot of people thought that was what it will always be. But of course, we've gone past that now. We're 1,363, about that for the official market. Public external debt went from about 28.54 to 51.9 billion. In between this, remember we had that Paris Club debt forgiveness. Of course, we have accumulated more than that even now. It's projected to hit $66.5 billion by the end of this year. Our population as all, of course, keeps growing. We're very productive people, one way or the other. More than 123 million around that time, 1999. But now we're looking at about 242.5 million people. There's also been some of those things that government has done. For instance, in the year 2000, we had our debt management office established. Can you believe a big country like Nigeria did not have a debt management office with all of the debts that we accumulate? Well, that was sorted in the year 2000. Okay, there we have it. So we had our debt management office was established. And then also we had the launch of the National Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy NEEDS. And that was to liberalize markets, stabilize inflation, and curb corruption. We'll ask the effectiveness of this in just a minute. Then that's debt that was written off, $18 billion written off in debt. Executed the final phase. We paid off that part in 2006, $12 billion. However, of course, we know that we have gone past that level. So some people say, I mean, was it even worth it at all? But let's have this conversation now with Professor Oke Ikechukwu, who is the Executive Director of Development Specs Academy. Joins us from our Abuja studio. Prof, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Good to have you. So, Prof, when we look at our journey, talking about the economy, pre-democracy, this dispensation that is, and where we are today, do we have more gains or more losses? Where do you stand?
We have more losses, very comprehensive losses. Starting from GDP, that's growth, our output. Let's leave the technical jargon. Starting from the value of the national currency, starting from the value of the poverty rate, the number of people who have lost their jobs, and the number of businesses that have shut down, and also even the quality of the democracy itself. My view is that we've suffered substantial losses, but not that they are without gains, and not that there are no lessons from them. So my response to your question is, we have suffered more of losses than gains, more of painful lessons than ameliorating experiences. That's where we still are today.
But, Prof, would you say losses when we see, for instance, the population has grown? We're about 142 million. Now we're more than 100 million more. So when you put such reality side by side, would you still say that we have suffered more losses?
I'll still say so because, you know, the population did not grow last night. What you're talking about is the time we took to reevaluate what we thought was our population, and we realized it was 100 million more than we had in mind before. The indicators to look at is, look, what is your output? And we'll look at the precipitating factors. Before our democratic experience, you didn't have the kind of insurgency we have today. People were going to their farms and producing. People in Maiduguri were sending crops, cereal, sugar cane. The middle belt was in peace. Farmers were farming and bringing a lot of food. The same with every other part of the country. Today, the volume of food coming out from farming communities all over the country has declined. The level of poverty has risen. The level of security has also declined. So those are the key indicators. Instead of saying, oh, population, no. That population, even if it didn't exist, whatever population we had at a time, we had more manageable templates for handling them. You look at the number of people who are refugees today. They used to live in places. They were part of a social environment. Local government chairmen were in their local governments and carrying out their duties. If they got 10 million naira, it was expended there. Today, many local government chairmen, and I'm talking about very many of them in various parts of the country where there's insurgency and co, they get between 100 and sometimes 300 million in a month. Nothing happens, even before the refugees came. So there's no real local governance to drive all of that. You know, so those are the facts to look on the table. But the flip side is this. Does it mean government is not doing anything about it? No. Does it mean this government of today is responsible for all of this? No. It's a build-up of many factors. So that today we are trying to manage a bigger problem than we had before, and people with a short memory attribute it to those who are in charge today. That's part of the challenge on the table. That's my take on that.
So where would you say we missed it? So when you then
attribute unjustly, sorry?
I wanted to ask, where do you think, at what point do you think we missed it?
Actually, I don't think we've missed it at all. We are still progressing. You see, a nation in evolution cannot be measured with a nation that has acquired a certain level of stability. Even as we speak, even with all the suffering, even with what's going on today, we have not missed it. It is lessons of the moment that will advise us on how to behave subsequently. If you think you voted for me because I gave you money and you vote for me again, you get the same result. So to say we missed it would be to assume that, oh, you know, the people are innocent, but the leaders are misleading us. No. We have not missed it. That's my view. We are working on it. We can't give up on us. So if you're going to, from Abuja now, from this studio, you're going to Lokoja, you drive on the airport road until you get to a place called Giri. If you turn left, you're going to Lokoja. If you turn right, you're going to Kaduna and Kano and Co. Now, the person who is on the road and turns left is actually going to Lokoja as he planned. Or he may meet bumps. He may even meet a riot. He may have a flat tire. That's part of what is involved in traveling. So the expectation of El Dorado from the morning, from day one, once a government comes in, first is mistaken. Second, governments also make mistake. The question is, when you make mistake, are you doing something about it? Are you being honest about it?
Are we being honest about it, Prof? Are we doing something about it? Are we being honest from your perspective?
From my perspective, there's certain greater honesty will be required. Because you see, when you make a mistake, it is human. When you then make a mistake and you're trying to paper it over, it becomes a problem. Are there explanations? Yes. Like, I think last week there was something, if you look at the political setting, for instance, you notice that the entire opposition is working very hard. But the hard work they are doing is inside their parlor. They are not telling us what their ideology will be or how they plan to win this election, because there isn't really much going on at the grassroots level. Last week, the APC in government that everybody is angry about had a forum where they came to work out how they are going to run their election. As we speak, they've secured 25 people per polling unit all over the country. So if tomorrow they win, with this narrative, if somebody might ask, okay, yeah, you're saying they did this and that, but at the time they told us they already set up committees, even at the polling booth level, what was the opposition doing? That's the kind of thing one would want to see. Because a lamentational approach to public issues and governance delivers no results. Oh, they have done this again, it is bad. I believe you. What do you intend to do differently? So, yes, there is hope. But that hope must be predicated on the fact of people getting up finally in 2027 to say, this is what I want going forward. It's not by lamentation, it's not by speech making. Right now, a lot of people, all the energies are expended in choosing candidates, etc. So let there be something tangible people can hold on to and say, well, even if it looks like this, on the basis of this, I find this believable. Those are some of the issues.
And you know, Prof, you talked about road bombs the other time, and it seems one big road bomb for Nigeria at this time is the issue of insecurity. We have our hearts broken, a lot of families. We saw a general buried yesterday. And some people have connected this, perhaps, because you did talk about not just crying about it, but doing something about it. Some people have connected this to the welfare of personnel. I wonder what you think about that.
There's the welfare of personnel. There's the question of local intelligence. There's the question of arms and ammunition. And there's the question of responsible civilian leadership. At the level of responsible civilian leadership, we have a challenge, and it doesn't matter which part of the country or which political party. There is not enough happening at the local level to absorb the people and challenge them economically and enable them earn a living. Now, at the level of local intelligence, if I'm posted to your community, I'm leading a battalion or a brigade of soldiers, I'm there to secure it, or I'm an inspector, a DIG, I'm there to secure you and your people. As I arrive from my home state in Katsina, I've never been to your village, I don't know anybody there. You who live there, you're in a position to tell me that there's this man or this woman who has not been part of us for so long, but for the last 5 weeks, he or she has been coming and going, and we don't know enough. Can you look into it? Now, I come in as a stranger to protect you. You give me no information, and you expect me to perform magic? Remember that by my training as a soldier, I face targets and eliminate them. Now, I've come into an environment where the enemy or the target is embedded in the community. It's now asymmetrical warfare. So I need your cooperation. Is that happening well enough? It isn't. That's number 2. Number 3, you find also that the army is overstretched. I keep emphasizing that because that's a more visible and active component of our national security today. Totally overstretched. Look at our land area. Ask yourself, how many officers does the NDA turn out in a year? How many soldiers do they turn out in the depots? There isn't enough. They are being overstretched. If anything goes wrong, you say, oh, create a new battalion. Are you inventing new human beings? No. Okay, let the service chiefs relocate to where the trouble is. Nobody does that since the history of humanity and warfare. Strategic leadership does not go to the theater. If you shoot the chief of army staff or any service chief, you've dismantled you've dismantled the platform for coordination that would drive operation and tactics. So our responses are often ad hocist. Yes, security is a core issue now. And the thing to put on the table is that it is no longer sufficient to be angry about it. A general, check throughout the history of modern warfare. Find out how many generals died. The other day it was Brigadier General Oba and all of that, and now a retired officer who served well, whom I know personally, apprehended on the road like a chicken, held for how many weeks? Nothing happened. They were not afraid, knowing he's a retired general. And this is a nation with a commander-in-chief, with serving officers, with retired officers like him. How do you think everybody will be feeling? So it's okay to say that U.S. has come and helped us to kill the, what do you call him now, the deputy leader of ISIS. I think it was ISIS? Well, one of the ISWAP, I don't know which. But you must remove ornamental triumphs from the reality on the ground. What do we have to do with the head of ISIS or head of ISWAP or whoever? You're telling us you killed a lion in the forest. But my problem is that rats are coming into my chicken and eating up the fish. That's what the problem I want you to solve. Now, has anything happened with the death of that man? No, instead, insecurity is galloping. That is the worry. And in the midst of that, you see signs that also give you the impression they are made. And we're discrediting our military and security agencies. They are very efficient, they are very capable, but they're working in an environment that doesn't seem to have the right combination of variables to make them efficient. Those are the challenges. And so you find the civilian population is no longer too happy with them, but the civilian population also doesn't know enough. And when somebody says, oh, this huge sum was budgeted for security, I will agree. Question, how much of it has been released? In the instant case, as at 3 weeks ago, as far as I knew, only 7% have been released to the military. That's one. Two, if you mention the amount of money budgeted, please convert it to dollars and see whether it was up to what they were getting 6 years ago. So you're getting less to begin with, and people are talking about money, forgetting that military equipment is internationally denominated. If you're buying a rocket or a part, the price is international. If I give you 1 billion and you go to buy MRAP vehicles, you're going to buy about 9 of it or 8, and they say, oh, they spent 1 billion. If you're training anybody, you're using bullets. It is not what you recycle. So it involves continuous capital expenditure on, yes, you procure the arms, and then you get ammunition. Are these things happening as they should? No. But the other thing to put on the table is that our local community is doing enough for their own security. Those are because it's come to the point where it has to be, look, it's either me or I do something or I'm gone. And I go back to the point I've made before. There used to be license for carrying the Mossberg, the pump-action gun. It was withdrawn, I think, after the Matasina event in Kano more than 20 years ago. Gun licenses should be returned. Just like today, you have schools, driving schools that train drivers when they want to get a license. There should be, in each state, at least one gun training facility, one range, where people who buy gun, it's not like going to the shop, you're licensed, we know your means of livelihood, we know everything about you documented. You are assessed and, what do you call it? Cleared to be somebody who can possess a gun. You buy the gun from official quarters, and then you go to a non-government-designated range managed by somebody, and then you train, and you're certified that you can shoot well. Otherwise, people will just be killing themselves because they have guns. Those are the things to consider, because if I'm a robber and I know you have a gun, you've been trained on how to use it. I must monitor you very, very carefully before I take the risk of coming near where you are. Those are some of the issues. Yes, security is an obstacle on the way. It needs to be cleared. That's a fact, and I agree with you.
Yeah, and Prof, you talked about the army because they're the more visible. But of course, we know it's supposed to be the police And so turning our attention to them, it's like we hardly talk about the police these days when we are talking about internal security, and they're supposed to be at the fore of it. And some people have said perhaps it's their financial stability, their welfare, their pension. You know, these are the discouraging factors to see the police as active as they should be in the internal security front.
Well, I don't think it's pension that's preventing them from doing their work. But the point to make is that the pension was always poor until recently. If you're going now, your gratuity is 200%, I think, of what you used to get. The pension itself, all of that has been, moved up. That's on the table. But I want to address the substantive issue of their effectiveness. The police force is in charge of internal security. If you take the population of Nigeria and you check the number of policemen we have, and you find out that for each policeman, he's supposed to be monitoring 200 people or more, you know that there's no police force. That's number one. Number two, how equipped are they? Number three, how much of the job of the police is not caused by the police itself, particularly senior and retired officer? What are they doing about the reputation of the force generally? You recall the advert, police is your friend, very fine TV production, high technical quality. Somebody comes, makes a report. There are soldiers, policemen there, very neatly dressed, and they quickly jump into a vehicle. You know that that is fiction. It's Nollywood in the name of government, because most stations don't have writing pad. The officers are not well dressed. You meet some of them, the regular police, you meet some of them at the checkpoint, and your suspicion is that they are not policemen because there are 4, and 3 of them are wearing bathroom slippers. One is wearing a dark vest. But they are carrying guns. The Police Service Commission we also need to convince ourselves, at least me, that a Police Service Commission needs to remain in place. Why don't we have Army Service Commission, Navy, Naval Service Commission, etc.? The entire police state should be rejigged. But since right now we are speaking of, what do you call it now? What's the new policy now? State policing. I do hope and believe that some of these considerations will be brought into the new thinking. But the truth is that the army is constrained to come out because police is overwhelmed. Not because police doesn't want to do its work, but because it's simply overwhelmed. If you recall, during Jonathan's time, there was a call for the military to just withdraw generally. It was governors, I think 11 of them in the first instance, who went to meet the president and say, don't even think about it. If you withdraw them, we'll be overrun. And it's true. There's more fear of the army than of the police because of capacity and equipment. But the truth of what's happening is that by following that road, we're actually demobilizing the army. Because if I'm a soldier on the road, I'm not part of the regular discipline and drills. I'll also be collecting money. Progressively, what has been drilled into me will be wearing out. And what you will then be seeing is a fighting force that's supposed to deal with external pressure, but has been kind of watered down by internal idle assignments. Because look, the military, the army, is not designed to arrest you and keep you in detention. The army exists to apply maximum force with no interest in picking up casualties to protect our sovereignty. That's why you can have a guard room, somebody misbehaves, you lock him up. It's the police that have cells that can expand for detention, trial, and all the rest of it. Now you pull out these people who really be in specialized settings, barracks, training for the worst. You give them the job of internal security because there's a challenge in that regard. We are losing on both fronts. Police is not gaining the strength it needs. The army is being progressively demobilized. And so on all fronts, you see that the security forces appear not to be doing enough. But that's because they are given too much to do. And secondly, public confidence drops. And they are then unfairly assessed and unfairly stigmatized as not doing anything. That is not right.
Yeah, it seems we have a whole lot to do to get out of where we are now when it comes to insecurity. But thank you so much, Professor Okeke Chiku, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy, for your time and your views.
Thank you.
All right, now let's take a break in Business Morning. When we come back, we're still looking at the economy. Popular notion now is that we are stable and we're looking for growth. We'll hear what NESG has to say about that after the break. To stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning here on Channels Television. We're still staying on the economy and looking at the growth and movement of the economy. 27 years of democracy, especially in this administration where we've had a lot of reforms. And a popular notion now is that the macroeconomy is stable, but we're looking for growth. Let's find out what the Nigerian Economic Summit Group thinks about this. We have the head of research joining us virtually, Dr. Joseph Ogebe. Dr. Ogebe, good morning. Welcome to the program. Hello, Dr. Ogebe. I think you should unmute.
Oh, sorry. Good morning.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome to the program. So, I mean, is NESG also in line with a popular notion now that Nigeria's economy is stable and looking for growth?
So, yes, in a way, I would say yes, because over the last 2 years, we've seen some improvements in macroeconomic conditions, and we've seen some element of stability. But what we're saying is that this stability is not full stability in itself. It's actually a fragile stability, because any shock in terms of internal or domestic shock can actually get us, can actually slow some of the growth that we've recorded. So we're saying that the economy has stabilized, yes, but the stability is still fragile. But despite the fragile stability, there is need for us to move to what we call the consolidation phase. The first phase in our economic transformation roadmap, which is a long-term thing, is the stabilization phase. So first, you need to stabilize the economy. Then next, you need to move to the consolidation phase. And this consolidation phase is all about, improving productivity, improving growth in certain sectors, and also making sure that, most importantly, most of these gains that we've recorded from the stabilization should trickle down to job creation and improve investment, and also reduce poverty in the economy.
Yeah, I guess that's what, because I mean, last year, the music mostly we heard was, yeah, we see the macroeconomic data looking good, but it has not trickled down to the micro. So maybe you should tell us more about this consolidation phase and how NESG thinks we can achieve it.
So yes, so what we crafted as the consolidation phase, and this is not, it has been done in other countries, right? The first thing that we need to do under the consolidation phase is to fully stabilize. We need to anchor our key macroeconomic fundamentals. You need to reduce inflation, because inflation is a big elephant in the room. You know what it does? It will reduce, it will increase the, your cost of your production. So a lot of citizens, a lot of Nigerians are also feeling the pinch from the high inflation. It's almost at double digits. Then next is that also the debt that we're currently having is over 160 trillion, about 160 trillion. It's too high. So we need to anchor key macroeconomic fundamental. We've seen improvements on the fiscal side, sorry, on the real side and the external side, but we still need to see significant improvements on the fiscal side and also on the, on the monetary side. But apart from, the first is you need to anchor your macroeconomic fundamentals. Secondly, you need to strengthen institutions. We've said this time for a while now. There are key reforms that we need to unlock for us to, help strengthen the consolidation phase. Institutional deepening is very key. Ease of doing business, which we measure monthly in our business confidence monitor, tells us that the cost of doing business has increased from what we used to know. Then also regulatory clarity. We need strong regulatory clarity for businesses to thrive or to survive. Then also, we also need to strengthen fiscal discipline. It's enough that yes, we are moving towards improving revenue, but we need to prioritize spendings, right? How we spend the revenues we get, and also need to block leakages in terms of our fiscal side. And the third element in our consolidation, what we call structural transformation is very, very key, and is one of the pivotal points in our consolidation phase. We need this growth. We've seen 4% growth, but we need the growth to be broad-based, and we need the growth to be real, to be able to cut across different sectors. Key for us is agriculture, manufacturing, and trade. We have high job elasticities. When you improve growth in this, you'll be rest assured that to trickle down to employ more people in this sector, and that's the only way you see people having good livelihood, and that will also help to reduce poverty in those sectors. Then also important, we need to consider human capital development, right? Because even when you invest in these critical sectors that we need to firepower our growth and create jobs, require tools so that those sectors will absorb these skills into full employment or into gainful employment. So it's very important that we'll try human capital development in the economy. Then the last element of our consolidation phase is what we call social inclusion. This is vertical. Job is critical, poverty reduction is critical, and also improved well-being is also very critical. So if what we're saying is that this is not a short-term thing, the stabilization phase is a short-term thing, but the consolidation phase we're looking at, from 3 to 5 years. But we need to start now. It's very urgent that we need to start now to help grow the economy and also create more livelihood. That's it. For people in the country.
All right, Dr. Gebe, NESG is also noting the absence of a credible framework to efficiently allocate resources. What does that mean in an everyday language, and how do we deal with that?
So what we're saying in our recently published report is that this consolidation phase is critical. But the key challenge, the investment to drive the consolidation phase. Because you need investment in critical sector, you also need investment to strengthen these fundamentals that are important in the consolidation phase. So because we know that, yes, investment is key, we try to create a consolidation financing framework. What this framework would do is that it tries to bring the various sources of finance in the economy, right? There are different sources of finance from external side to domestic side, because your government cannot actually drive the consolidation phase, cannot actually drive the industrialization or structural transformation we're looking at. So during consolidation framework, we try to identify areas whereby we can actually get capital to invest into the economy, and also the kind of investment instruments. It could be PPP, blended finance, and other instruments we outline framework. So this framework takes care of de-risking these sectors, right? Because what we hear from investors is that we're advocating that more investment should go into, it also has high risk. Consolidation financing framework takes care of how sources of capital can be invested into the critical sector, also how to de-risk the risks in this critical sector. So the framework that Nigeria can actually adopt to speed up, investment in this rural sector. Because as you know, the budget alone, both federal and nationals, cannot actually, drive industrialization or finance industrialization in Nigeria.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Joseph Ogebe, the head of research at NESG, for your views this morning. We'll just, let's lean over to the global side. We have Anita Edith joining us for that.
It's another week in the month of June, and the month is gradually, it's in the half, the 15th of June. So let's start first with the global expectation starting from Monday, June the 15th. So as you can see here, first of all, we're expecting, but China is about some 8 hours ahead of Nigeria and many other countries. So we have China's May Industrial Production Report, which has been released by the country's, according to the country's latest report, the world's second largest economy it recorded the production grew by 4.3% year-on-year last month, and that's up from 4.1%, which was recorded in the month of April this year. Now, the data highlights a modest recovery in factory outputs that outpaced consensus market estimates, and is also providing some relief amid ongoing geopolitical headwinds and sluggish domestic demand. Now, on a month-to-month basis, the country's industrial production grew by 0.61%, and that's up from 0.05%, while year-to-date performance dropped by 5.6%. That's from 5.6 to 5.3%. So the growth came despite the global energy supply chains remaining under pressure due to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, for Tuesday, where all eyes will be on the Bank of Japan, that's within the Asia region, where Japan will hold its interest rate decision with a 25 basis point increase expected at the end of the meeting tomorrow. So that will bring the key interest rate to 1%, and it will also be the country's highest interest rate since 1995. So let's move to Wednesday, where later this week, where all eyes will be on the U.S. Federal Reserve's new chairman, Kevin Warsh, who is the #1 central bank chairman. So this coming out in his first interest rate decision meeting, which follows the exit of former Fed Chair Jerome Powell, whose 8-year tenure expired last month. So markets are expecting a hold stance by the U.S. Federal Reserve. Then on the same day, we're going to have the U.S. retail sales report for May, and that will be released and is expected to show a 0.6% month-on-month rise. Now, for Thursday is another interest rate meeting, this time on the Bank of England, which will hold its interest rate decision, and a hold stance is expected from the BOE's Monetary Policy Committee that will be at 3.75%. Now, at the same time in the UK, the country's employment data is scheduled to be released and is expected to show an increase of 5.1%. And then for Friday this week, there's going to be a signing ceremony, which was for the announcement of the formalization of the peace accord between the US and Iran, which was announced on Sunday, and this will take place in Switzerland. And also in expectation for that day is Japan's inflation report, which is expected to show a rise of 1.5% year-on-year. So that's global expectations. Now let's turn over to the news aspect of the global scene. Now, world leaders have welcomed the US-Iran agreement on Sunday to bring an immediate and permanent end to nearly 4 months Middle East conflict, with a signing ceremony set for Friday in Switzerland. We just mentioned that, and that's expected to open 60 days of additional talks on Iran's nuclear program. Now, in a joint statement after the agreement was announced, the UK, France, and Germany and Italy commended it as a moment of opportunity to restore regional stability and stabilize the global economy, adding that they were prepared to lift relevant sanctions in response to clear and verifiable steps taken by Iran regarding its nuclear program. Now, the group, known as the E4, also called for the agreement to be implemented rapidly and comprehensively. So now, meanwhile, in response to this agreement by the US and Iran, grain and vegetable oil futures have declined on expectation that a potential reopening of the Strait of Hormuz would improve access to vital crop inputs, and that's helping to ease the threat of food inflation brought by the months-long war in the Middle East. Now, industry sources say wheat prices in Chicago fell as much as 1.2% before trading at $5.91 a bushel at 12:30 p.m. Singapore time. At the same time, the price of corn dropped 0.7% to $4.373 a bushel. Soybean oil fell 1.1% to $68.89 per pound, while palm oil in Kuala Lumpur, that's Malaysia's capital, was unchanged at 4,475 for the country's currency a ton at midday. So now, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Program, that's the FAO, has warned in May that a severe global food crisis could set in within 6 to 12 months due to the Strait of Hormuz's closure. Now let's move over to the ECB, where the ECB's president, that's the European Central Bank's president, Christine Lagarde, says high energy prices and energy inflation, which is currently hovering at 10.9%, are increasingly feeding through other parts of the broader economy. Now, this comes after the ECB raised its key interest rate by 25 basis points for the first time since 2023 last week, bringing the deposit rate to 2.525%. Now, the comment comes after the Middle East, the war in the Middle East drove up prices, including costs for to raise interest rates. Now, her remarks comes hours after the U.S. and Iran said that they had reached an interim agreement to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, prompting a sharp drop in energy prices. Now, in South Korea, the country have announced that the country and the U.S. have agreed to maintain a close cooperation in addressing the won's weakness. That's the South Korea's currency. Now, according to South Korea's Deputy Finance Minister Moon Jin-sung, the South Korean top government exchange official stressed that his country's recent decline looks too excessive relative to Korea's economic fundamentals, adding that the two sides have agreed to work together in addressing the softer currency. Now, Moon, who oversees Korea's foreign exchange policy, traveled to Washington over the weekend in an unusual standalone visit outside the regular consultation channels between the two countries. That's according to finance authorities. Now, the country's currency has rebounded to a two-week high today, aided by improved risk sentiment after a U.S.-Iran interim deal and signs of closer U.S. and Korea coordination. Now let's move over to Australia, where the Reserve Bank has kicked off its latest meeting on monetary policy today, with markets once again fixated on the fate of near-term interest rates. Now, ahead of its interest rate decision, which is expected later this week, economists expect that the RBA would hold its key interest rate at 4.35%, and that will be the first time after a series of rate hikes at its first three meetings this year. Now, investors will focus on whether Governor Michelle Bullock signals some comfort at the current rate or keeps the door open to further moves to counter stubborn price pressures. Now, let's talk about U.S. President Donald Trump. He says that the country, France, must scrap a 3% tech sales tax or face a 100% tariff on U.S. imports of his wine and champagne. The president issued a threat ahead of this week's G7 summit in Evian-les-Bains in France. Now, it's not the first time that Trump has targeted France's wine industry with retaliatory measures. In 2019 and January this year, the U.S. raised the possibility of imposing hefty charges on tech imports, including wine, in response to the then new levy, which is said was discriminatory against U.S. companies, and also tried to force President Emmanuel Macron to join his Board of Peace initiative. Now, exports to the U.S. make up about 1/5 of the French wine industry's total global sales at about $2.2 billion annually. And finally, on global news, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says Britain will ban its 16, that's 16, those who are children aged around 16 and less from using a range of social media apps, calling it a big moment for the country. Now, Starmer told a news conference today that he will fight back if technology companies resist the move intended to protect children from harmful content and excessive screen time. He said he's not prepared to compromise on the safety and happiness of our children, in quote. Now, the move marks the UK's part of growing global movement to tighten online safety for children. Australia, Canada, Brazil, and Indonesia have already introduced legislation or announced age-based restrictions or requirements for children's access to social media. Now, France, Spain, Denmark, Thailand, and South Korea are among others studying or developing similar approaches. As global news and global expectations for this week, I'll see you again.
Thank you so much, Anita. As we close, unfortunately, we are back in the red at the NGX. That's the local boss. This morning, the all share has dropped 0.30% in early trade. So that hope, of going to the next level seems to be going down just a bit. It's 244,010.45. We saw that the most active this morning include Access Holdings. However, Access Holdings has not recovered the 25 naira price that it's supposed to be on. Sterling Bank is also down. It's lost 3.16% this morning. The National Energy Insurance almost 10%, 9.99%. Also, Seplat is down this morning, as well as Total Energy. Top gainers, we see Nemeth. Nemeth has recovered a bit, almost 10% up. NMLware PLC, that's also positive. And then we see some insurance stocks also looking positive in early trade. But intraday numbers will come your way during Business Incorporated at 1:30. Anita Edet will be back for that. But I'll see you for the closing numbers at 10 p.m. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Do have a great day ahead.